Part 1. You will hear a phone conversation between a woman and an employee of a digital photography company. First, you have some time to read questions 1 to 6. Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 6.
Good afternoon, Photo Pro Services. This is Dominic speaking. How may I assist you today?
Hi, Dominic. I came across your website and I'm interested in getting some old pictures scanned. Honestly, I have a range of sizes. Some are tiny snapshots from school days, and others are quite large, around 30 or 31 centimetres on one side. Are there any size restrictions?
Absolutely. We can scan pictures up to 32 centimetres on one side, and each photo must be at least 2 centimetres on its shortest side. If you have anything bigger or smaller, we'd have to discuss special arrangements.
Right, none of mine exceed that maximum. Now, some of the photos are still attached to black cardboard backing, and others are actually glued into an album. Will you accept them like that?
Unfortunately, we can't work with anything that's glued together or left in an album. You'll need to remove them. Our technicians are not trained to handle them if they're in a frame, for example. They really must be separate.
Noted. I'll make sure to take them all out beforehand. Now, I've counted roughly 380 photos in total, from family portraits to holiday shots. How much will that cost?
For between 300 and 400 pictures, we charge £205 in total, and that includes a single disc with the digital images.
That's not bad. So, before we finalise the order, let me ask, do you need me to send any sort of deposit?
We won't ask for deposits. However, once we've scanned everything, we'll get in touch to confirm the exact amount. After we receive the payment, we'll ship your box back along with the finished disc.
Great, that makes sense. By the way, I've sorted my photos into themed batches. Is it possible to keep them separate on the disc?
Sure, we do offer that service. In that case, each batch can be placed into its own folder. I have seen some people label them as holidays or birthdays. If you prefer, you can call one weddings or a particular theme pack that you desire.
Perfect. Now, I'm aware that some of these photos are very dull, or have faded colour. Can you fix that?
Within the standard service, we'll look at each photo. We can often make minor adjustments to the colour and brighten it up if needed. I can guarantee that you will be surprised to see how much better they appear than the original one.
That's excellent. And what happens if a photo's extremely fragile? I have a few that might tear easily.
No issues for that because our technicians are expert handlers of fragile photos. In that case, we will do a careful scan by hand rather than feeding them through automated equipment to avoid damage.
Excellent. That's what I was expecting.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to read questions 7 to 10. Now listen carefully and answer questions 7 to 10.
Another question. Can you remove something that's spoiling the shot? For instance, a random sign behind us or an unwanted object that we don't want in the digital print?
Yes, of course, we have a state-of-the-art equipment and technology that takes care of that. We can remove or retouch out small details, or even change the background if requested. That's billed as a separate restore service though, but we can definitely do it.
Interesting. I might do that for a couple of them. I also have some old prints that are out of focus. Can you sharpen them?
Unfortunately, if the photo isn't correctly in focus, there's very little we can do to improve the quality. Sorry about that.
Fair enough. So, how long does the entire process take?
We're currently at about 8 days turnaround from when we receive your package.
Great. I'll put them in a sturdy container and send them tomorrow.
That's fine. Make sure it's a well-padded cardboard box, and also please avoid using plastic tubs as they can crack during shipping.
Okay, thank you so much.
That is the end of part 1. You now have some time to check your answers. Now turn to part 2. Part 2. You will hear the liaison officer at Holymere Estate talking about the upcoming developments happening there. First, you have some time to read questions 11 to 15. Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 15.
Hello everyone, and thanks for gathering here today at Holymere Estates Community Room. My name is Celeste Milford and I'm the Liaison Officer for the upcoming developments. I know many of you have questions about what's going on, particularly changes to the cafe and our future construction plans. So, let's get right into it. First, some brief background. Holymere Estate was built approximately 150 years ago by an aristocrat named Sir Gideon Holymere. Initially, it was meant to be his personal family home, so quite large for a single family, but it was the style back then. Over time, it passed through various owners. One local entrepreneur tried to convert it into a bed and breakfast, while the council once leased it out as small private offices. However, that arrangement fell through. Eventually, it opened to the public in a more official capacity, hosting concerts and community events. Currently, the estate is extensive, featuring multiple wings. Now, the west wing is of prime interest to us. A thorough inspection showed it's structurally sound, so we've decided to transform that space into a first-rate sports facility. A modern hub with indoor courts, a fitness studio and an all-purpose gym for local schools to utilise. We expect to break ground next month on that new sports centre. Let's talk about the cafe. If you've been here at lunchtime, especially around noon, you'll have seen how crowded it gets. The single service counter causes extremely long lines, and that's the number one complaint we receive from visitors and from local parents. We want to fix that. So we're in the process of creating multiple counters with distinct menus. One request: which might help things run more smoothly, is for parents to go over the day's options with their children each morning. We don't want them wandering from counter to counter, trying to decide after seeing each line. Having them choose in advance will reduce waiting times. Now, regarding the old cafe setup, we're not shutting it down entirely, but it will become more of an overflow space, possibly used on weekends or for bigger events. For regular weekdays, the new counters in the converted hall will handle almost all the traffic. Eventually, once we see how popular the new system is, we might do partial renovations in the old cafe area, meaning only limited or partial service there for the time being.
Before you hear the rest of the speech, you have some time to read questions 16 to 20. Now, listen carefully and answer questions 16 to 20.
Before we go on, let me detail the new serving points one by one. For Globetrotter Delights, this station focuses on world cuisine. We've planned weekly themes rotating between different countries like Thai, Spanish or Moroccan. Each week's menu is posted online so everyone knows what's coming. Expect changes every 7 days. Then for Fresh on the Go. This one is a bit more interactive. We invite suggestions from the pupils themselves. Perhaps they'd like Vietnamese street food one day or a new smoothie concept. We want them to help shape what's served and come up with creative ideas. Our chef team will decide which ideas to implement. Moving on to Tasty Veg. Finally, we have a fully vegetarian station. Actually, it's vegetarian plus vegan options. This means absolutely no meat or fish on that counter to accommodate those who prefer that diet. With so many children adopting such lifestyles, it's been highly requested. Now, a quick note about after-school clubs. We already have a painting circle that meets on Tuesdays, and there's a popular filmmaking group that works on short documentaries. Starting next month, we're introducing a tennis club because we've had repeated inquiries about using our grounds for tennis training. We're also excited to launch a digital photography workshop on weekends. Lastly, there's a possibility of an in-sculpture class further down the line, but we haven't set a start date yet, so that might come later. Okay, that's the essential overview. Let's move along to the next item.
That is the end of part 2. You now have some time to check your answers. Now turn to part 3. Part 3. You will hear 2 students discussing about refrigeration technology. First, you have some time to read questions 21 to 27. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 27.
I wanted to let you know that I've been doing some research on refrigeration for our project. Apparently, the first artificial form of refrigeration was developed way back in 1748 by William Cullen at the University of Glasgow.
I read that too and was quite taken aback to find out that it was so long ago.
Yes, I was too. Of course, it wasn't until the 19th century that the development of viable cooling technology really took off. In 1913, the first home refrigerators were being manufactured.
Did many people buy the early design?
Put it this way, they cost around $1,000 each, nearly twice as much as a car at the time.
I see. Did you manage to dig up any information on the key developments of the refrigerator, particularly concerning health and safety issues?
Well, up until the late 1920s, most refrigerators used combinations of toxic gases as refrigerants.
The refrigerant is the substance that's used in the cooling system, isn't it?
That's right. After several fatal accidents involving gas leaks, several big companies joined forces to find a safer solution. This solution was named Freon. Unlike its predecessors, it was colorless, odorless, non-flammable, and best of all, non-toxic.
That would have made refrigerators even more appealing, I imagine. I read that refrigerator and freezer units became more common in the US during the 1940s, when they went into mass production.
Interestingly, it was around that time that Albert Einstein designed his own refrigerator, which required no moving parts or electricity. He sold the patent to a company, and although the design wasn't produced in great numbers, they held on to it to keep it out of the hands of rivals.
Should we discuss that design in our project?
Well, as it was an alternative type of fridge, I don't think it's necessary.
I suppose. What about the environmental impact of modern refrigerators?
That's a major issue. It was discovered during the 1970s and 80s that CFC compound gases like Freon were contributing to the depletion of the ozone layer.
It was actually those concerns that led to the banning of Freon in the early 1990s. Since then, modern refrigerators have used variations of new substances as refrigerants. I'm not sure exactly what these are.
Well, we don't need to go into so much detail.
Still, we should say how the refrigerator has gone from being a luxury item to a central part of the modern household, and how it has changed. Technology has not only made the refrigerator affordable to buy, but also energy efficient and safe.
Although they do account for roughly 6% of the average monthly electric bill.
Yes, I saw a similar statistic. There are several ways to increase their efficiency, such as organizing the refrigerator's contents. I think we should go into more detail on this as it's something practical that people will be able to relate to.
Sure.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 28 to 30. Now listen and answer questions 28 to 30.
Do we really need to explain the physics behind modern fridges?
It would be extremely helpful, I think, and it's not too complicated. We could also use visual aids.
So, how do they work?
Essentially, your fridge and freezer work by continually turning a refrigerant from a liquid to a gas, and then condensing that gas back into a liquid. That has a cooling effect. The refrigerant leaves the top of the fridge as a hot gas, and it then enters the compressor. From this point, it is pushed through a long series of condenser coils where its heat is drawn out and it turns back into a liquid.
I see. What next?
The liquid is then pumped through something called a capillary. This is another important part of the system as it removes any moisture and contaminants before the refrigerant re-enters the fridge compartment. It then passes through the fridge's evaporator coils where it expands and turns back into a gas, thus drawing heat away from the system and cooling the items in your fridge. After that, the gas is returned to the compressor where the whole process starts again.
That is the end of part 3. You now have some time to check your answers. Now, turn to part 4. Part 4. You will hear a talk on vitamin supplements. First, you have some time to read questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Good morning, everyone. I've been invited along to talk to you today about the use of vitamin supplements, such as vitamin pills, and to give you some advice on when you should take them. Now, as you may be aware, the vitamin supplement industry is one which is thriving. In the United Kingdom alone, about £370 million is spent by consumers on vitamin and other health supplements. If you look on the shelves in your local chemist's or health food shop, you'll notice that there is a wide range of supplements to choose from. And of course, they all promise to do wonders for your health. What this means is that it's difficult to resist buying them. We all want to be healthier after all. While most nutritionists agree that the trend in vitamin supplement consumption isn't a bad thing, many have expressed the opinion that unless we know what to take and how to take it, we may be wasting our money. For example, some health-conscious individuals take huge doses of vitamins without needing them. It is only those with a severe vitamin deficiency, often brought on by a medical condition, who should be consuming vitamin supplements in large amounts. Some nutritionists are totally against the use of vitamin supplements unless there is a serious problem that needs to be addressed. They claim that we should simply be eating a balanced diet, including a variety of fruit and vegetables. To an extent, I have to agree with this viewpoint, as that is the ideal scenario. However, the reality is that very few of us actually do eat as healthily as we should, despite our good intentions. Right or wrong, that's just how our hectic and fast-paced world is nowadays, and if a good multivitamin can offer the body something it needs, where's the harm? It's better than nothing after all. Having said that, I'd like to point out that coffee, tea, and alcohol all make it more difficult for the body to absorb vitamins, so it's worth keeping these to a minimum. If you do decide that you want to take a vitamin supplement, make sure you read the instructions on the label about how to take them. Unless otherwise stated, it is advisable to take them with a meal, preferably in the evening. For those of you out there who live in the city and find your busy lifestyle is getting to you, you may benefit from taking vitamins A, C, and E in particular. Those who do not get enough vitamin A may lose their ability to see in poor light and also have a weakened immune system. They could also have problems with their memory, as vitamin A is important for the brain. Vitamin C is also particularly useful for smokers. If you take into consideration that every cigarette smoked destroys 25 milligrams of vitamin C, you'll understand why. But be careful not to overdo it. Doses in excess of 1,000 milligrams a day can be harmful. Another useful vitamin is vitamin D. Sunlight is a natural source of this, so anyone who spends most of their day sitting at a desk in an office or lives in a country where there isn't a great deal of sunshine might benefit from this supplement, particularly in winter. Vitamin E is often added to lotions and creams for the skin. It is supposed to help the healing of the skin after burns and injuries, and supplements can also lower the risk of heart disease and cancer.
That is the end of part 4.